Okay. History. Okay, everyone, sorry for being late. I had some Wi-Fi problems and I got a little home late. History 101, join us here. Join us here. So we will start soon. Very sorry for the lateness. Things sometimes happen like that. Okay, cool. So I will definitely. Outlook. Okay, so let me see. Okay. Okay, cool. So hopefully this is working out. We're gonna wait for people to come inside, see how our viewership goes. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get my notebooks and stuff. BRB. Getting notes. BRB. Okay, let's see. This board is not coming in. Okay. Hey, thanks for coming. I'm just getting my notes ready, so I'll be right there. Okay, I am so sorry for the delay. I very much underestimated my previous appointment, so I'm here now. Welcome everyone. Thanks for the person who just came in. We're going to be trying out the YouTube thing more. Get this off real quick. I'm wearing the scarf all day. We're going to see what's up with the YouTube thing. We'll see how many people we get. We're trying this out, and hopefully we get a good turnout. So we are changing the agenda a bit. We are going to do something. Let's see. Can we do a quiz here? Pop out chat participants. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think we can do the survey like we did on Facebook. So essentially today we're going to be going over chapter 6 and 7 because those are the chapters that the quiz on Wednesday is going to be about. And then we'll finish off by talking about George Washington's farewell address. The only problem is I have not finished the whole farewell address because I have essentially not finished reading it, read the wrong speech, but that's my bad. Don't worry. Hey there. And we're going to be talking about that. So first off, chapter 6. If you do not remember, chapter 6 is entitled A New Nation. Looks something like this. And let me know if the Wi-Fi is freaking out or anything. I'm using someone else's Wi-Fi until I get the current one set up, but let me know in the chat if things work out. Essentially, the chapter 6 talks about things that lead up to essentially the 1787, the 1788, 1789 Constitution. So great, the American Revolution, success, right? We did it. We beat the British. We're America. We're great. We're all collective. We're a bunch of states united. We're the United States. There's a problem, though. There's a lot of debt after the Revolutionary War, and a lot of people still need to pay their debts back. Here's the thing. You get a bunch of state tax that gets drained up by a bunch of state taxes that get drained up by the federal government, because all these states can't afford it, mostly the northern states. So the southern states, who already paid off their debts from the war, are really pissed that the northern states are essentially gave their debt to the federal government, and not everyone has to pay the federal government to cover those taxes. And the problem was this is because this kind of goes into the issues of the fact that the federal government needs to implement taxes and implement costs. And this becomes a problem because with farmers and stuff who owe money to like essentially the state, private people, the government, anything like that, you get like rebellions. So we're going now in 1787. There was something called the Shays Rebellion, which essentially was a bunch of people. It says leaders saw both the debt and struggling economy as the consequence of the Articles of Confederation, which provide the federal government with no way to raise revenue and did little to create a cohesive nation out of various states. So essentially, the government's really supporting lenders, like creditors, and other people getting that debt. So essentially, what happens is that all these people who were owed money by all these people, like the banks and stuff, they were saying, we're going to take all your land. And the federal government can't really do anything. They're like, whatever. So these rebellions, the Shays Rebellion, go out and essentially like fight the government. They fight people who are trying to take their land. And essentially they were saying, we're fighting to get rid of all these people trying to take our land because they're just like the British. They say we're doing it in the spirit of 1776. This is on page 3 and 4 of the chapter 6 reading, Shays Rebellion. And the thing is that this became what James Madison originally said was the prime example of why the country needed a strong government. He said that without one, we may be endangered by the abuses of liberty as well as the abuses of power. Because Shays Rebellion was the first time that people came together and said that this shit sucks. So because of this, the Articles of Confederation were seen to be really weak because of Shays Rebellion. Happens in 1786, kind of goes into 1787. It ends in 1787, so some people tend to say 1787 with it. So in the summer of 1787, essentially after the Shays Rebellion, there's the Constitutional Convention, which is meant to revise the Articles of Confederation. And people have a humongous problem with this because they can't agree on the new system. James Madison, he wanted to really produce a completely new national constitution. And he proposed the Virginia Plan, named after Madison's home estate. But the Virginia Plan was essentially big states, right? This is where I need my notes. So the Virginia Plan essentially said that we'll have I think it was a bicameral system, which means 2 houses vote. So something like a Senate and a House. But the problem with that is in the lower house, you would have things based on population. You would base things based on population. So if you had more people, like Virginia did, has a lot of people, you would get more votes. And people in the lower house would elect people in the upper house for those positions. But the problem is it's the same system. If you have more population, you get to control both houses. The problem with that is that that's not very equal because the large states control everything. So they're not about that. I'm trying to look for it. This is the wrong notebook. Whoops. There's the other plan. It wasn't the Virginia plan. I think it was the New Jersey plan. Give me 1 second. I gotta look for this thing. I know whatever it was called, I'll tell you right now, but that was unicameral. and they're pretty much saying that in unicameral, we're just gonna have one state, one vote. That's it. Seems pretty fair, right? The big states are like, so this little ass state, let's say something like, what's a little ass state? Like New Jersey is gonna tell me a big old thing like South Carolina what to do. I'm like, nah, not gonna happen. And so that's a big thing right there. Let me see. Let's see. Passing to the west. Okay, don't worry, guys. I know this is in here somewhere. Yes, the New Jersey plan to protect small states. And that was detached. Let me see if I can find. What is the New Jersey plan? Sorry, I just want to see who proposed it. Where are you? For more than a decade, each state, however, preferred the Virginia. So it seems like Roger Sherman argued that members should be appointed by state legislators. Ordinary states that lacked information constantly and should have as little to do. Okay, so I don't know who did the New Jersey thing right now because I can't find the person who did it. If you can, which state would become So actually, Roger Sherman was the guy who proposed the Great Compromise. So I don't. Okay, so Monroe, I think Madison, Monroe, James Monroe was his name. Madison. This is James Madison did the Connecticut plan. New Jersey, I don't know who did it. Roger Sherman did the Great Compromise, which I think ended up with each state would have 2 senators who could vote independently. In addition, establishing both types of this compromise also counts states as 3/5. So Robert Sherman's a really big guy because he pretty much figures out the Great Compromise, which I think ends up being the Connecticut plan. Yeah, the Connecticut plan establishes 2 houses of Congress. So here's the big thing. Sorry for the delay. Feel free to ask questions in the corner if you're confused. I'm just gonna go off the notes right now. There were 3 compromises that came out also from this convention. I think this was 1787, 1788. These conventions are going down. So the 3 compromises was the Slave Fugitive Act. There's one in 1787, 88, and one in 1793. The 1788, 87 one was saying that established that slaves who try to run to the free states essentially weren't really free. That it doesn't automatically guarantee freedom. So if they're there, they can. They're still slaves. This is automatic freedom. But the 93 Act says that not only are they still slaves, but now with proof they can come back to the northern states, go in there and get their property. So essentially the Fugitive Act essentially is like if a slave runs north, if you have proof, you can come get your slave back. I don't know what the 88 one did too much. Feel free to ask questions. 3/5 compromise, pretty much for every 5 white men will count 3 black slaves, and that makes the South have a huge amount of power in the House of Representatives and be the majority. And the slave trade extended for 20 years, so it goes up into 1808. And that means that the slave trade is going to still go on for a minute. Even after 1808, people would smuggle them through Amistad, which essentially you get slaves from Africa, go to like Caribbean, pretend they're like from Jamaica, sneak them to the U.S. by forging papers. And the U.S. didn't like that, but essentially people were still smuggling in slaves. And George Washington's first foreign policy was the French Revolution because he had to figure out whether he was going to support the king who came to aid the French or the revolutionaries coming for the Republic. So the Federalists supported the French monarchy and the Anti-Federalists supported the revolutionaries. So that was a big voting block between them, one of the big voting blocks. Don't forget about the Haitian Revolution, which happened in 1798. So Toussaint Louverture was the guy who led it. But the first Dessalines was the first real president of Haiti because he's the one that after Toussaint got kidnapped by the French. Dessalines was the guy who said, kill everything that's white. And essentially that's what happened. After the Haitian Revolution, left to Louisiana to establish Cajun culture. So after the Haitians left Haiti, the ones who had to run away from all the killings of white, because there was a lot of mixed people. Like the French didn't treat their slave children like slaves; they were like one of their own. So when they fled, they went to Florida, and that started that Cajun culture. Fun fact: Dusable or Dusable or something like that. He was actually Haitian, went to Louisiana, and then when he went to Chicago, he founded that. So that's something you might ask about the connection between Chicago and Haiti. Like it was founded by someone who had origins and then who lived in Haiti. He was half French, half, I guess, Haitian, I guess. But Louisiana Purchase was done by $15 million. I forget what the original plan was, but Louisiana Purchase $15 million bucks. I forget when. There was a year about it. Let's see. So the Philadelphia. Oh, by the way, the one with the Virginia plan, New Jersey plan, Connecticut plan. We ended up doing the Connecticut plan. That was called the Philadelphia Convention, and that was in 1787. But yeah. So rest is new federal government. Cool. Let's talk about some court cases real quick. The Bill of Rights, actually, real quick, is in 1791, and the first 9 are individual rights. And they do these rights because a lot of people were complaining that, like, the federal government was too strong and we need rights to be protected. And it's the 10th Amendment, which helps state rights to take care of non-federal jurisdiction matters. So, and that's actually what's going to help people get out of the Alien Sedition Act when there's a court case court case later. So yeah, the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, the slave states are south of Ohio and east of Mississippi, and the non-slave states are north of Ohio River and west of Mississippi. The protection of private property is essentially code word for slavery. 1793 Fugitive Slave Act passed to back constitutional provisions of ordinance, argument that U.S. Constitution has entrenched slavery into the United States. Some also pissed a lot of a lot of people were pissed about the lack of Bill of Rights, so that's how you get the Bill of Rights in 1791. The 1819 legal case, with Justice John Marshall, that's later on, that's a legal case. Contracts are valid and must be upheld, need constitutional presence uphold it. So if the Justice John Marshall pretty much started the whole culture of we call judicial, what's it called again? Judicial, whatever was it? Manifest Destiny. God dang, I already passed it? No way. Bill of Rights. Whoa. Okay, judicial review. So he was the one that really started that whole judicial review stuff. And this is a big thing that happens under what court case? This comes from the Marbury versus Madison case where there was these midnight appointments by John Adams and like before he was about to lose to try to get people like Marbury in power, but Thomas Jefferson's like, we're not going to do this. Hi for the new person that came in. Please ask questions on the side. I'm mostly like breezing really quickly through a lot of these things. There's a lot of information. Chapter 6 and 7 are pretty much the big things right now, and that's going to be what's up. So I'm jumping around a lot in chapter 6 right now, all this constitutional stuff. Is chapter 6. Chapter 7, you get the War of 1812, the Western Confederacy, and you get a lot of stuff about Thomas Jefferson as like a president. So I'd very read this. This is going to not cover everything, but we're going to go through chapter 6 really hard, just so you know that, because a lot of what happens in chapter 6 very much informs chapter 7. So yeah, we get the judicial review. John Marshall was a Federalist, but Federalists believed in like lenient interpretation of the Constitution. If it's not directly word, that's fine. Anti-Federalists were very much has to be word per word. John Marshall's weird. Even though he's a Federalist, he's a man of the Constitution. He believes in word per word interpretation. So he's like one of the best like Supreme Court justices. And because of him, in the Judiciary Act of 1801, established constitutional rule in Supreme Court and checks and balances of government. So they're the ones who have the final word on Constitution matters. And remember, the Constitution is something really big that Rufai really wants to know. We'll talk about some court cases real quick. Sorry, getting a little thirsty. The Alien Sedition Act of 1798, essentially the Patriot Act, pretty much allow people John Adams to be like, I can make you shut up. You can't talk about the federal government or you'll be prosecuted. People don't like this. This is very much like, we can't critique the government. This is some pretty weird shit, bro. Because you get freedom. You know, we talked about not having kings and stuff, and now we can't talk crap about the president. They're like freaking people out. So essentially, because of the Alien Sedition Act, using the 10th Amendment, the Kentucky Virginia resolutions, which essentially were Thomas Jefferson and James Madison challenged against Alien Sedition Act with the 10th Amendment, and they won that. So Alien Sedition Act was essentially that's how they managed to not have it happen in their own states. Kentucky and Virginia didn't have it. And when Thomas Jefferson came into power, he pretty much let it die naturally. He didn't renew it. So he didn't actively kill it, but like he's like, I'm not going to touch it, and it's going to die a natural death. Cool. That's the Alien Sedition Act with the Kentucky Virginia resolution. We talked about the Judiciary Act of 1801, which says which establishes constitutional rule of Supreme Court. Now we have the McClellan versus Maryland case. I do not have the years on this, guy, so make sure you find your own years. I don't have in my notebooks. I don't want to look for them right now. It might take too long. So let's see. McClellan versus Maryland said the states cannot charge taxes from the federal government because they established that the power to tax is the power to destroy. It's a very famous phrase. It's from the McClellan versus Maryland case. And it essentially says that court decided that essentially the state cannot charge taxes from the federal government, and the county cannot charge taxes from the state, and the city cannot charge taxes from the county. For example, the federal government can charge Illinois, Illinois can charge Cook County can charge Chicago. It does not work the other way around. Chicago cannot ask Cook County for money. Cook County cannot ask Illinois for money, or tax them, I should say. Illinois cannot tax the federal government. You can't jail the federal government. It's like arresting a cop and you're a civilian. It's like, can't really do that, bro. So that's the McClellan versus Maryland case. We're also talking about the Gibsons. Hey, what up? Hey. So it's my boy. It's my peeps back there. So another thing is the Gibsons versus Ogden case, which is the shipping company that went through the state and refused to pay taxes to the state people ruling the taxes. Yeah, I'll be done in like 8 minutes, so that way you can have the room. So the company refuses because they already paid taxes to the federal government, and this establishes the legislation between interstate tax. Inter means from state to state, and intrastate tax, which is from within the state. The federal government covers interstate tax from state to state. So if you have liquor in Maryland and you want to send it to Delaware and it crosses all these crazy places, you pay the federal government. But if you're in Massachusetts and you want to go to another town in Massachusetts, that's state tax. So it establishes that, and it gets upheld. Court case held interstate taxes should be managed by the federal government. It would be bad business to have taxes paid every time a product crossed state lines. That was their justification. So those are some cases that are pretty important. And the whole based on McClellan in Maryland about the whole you can't tax the federal government, that was based on because the National Bank of Maryland. So that's when it was the case. We already talked about Haiti, for their convention, 3/5 compromise. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, they wrote the Federalist Papers, which support the Constitution. Those Federalist Papers were very important in supporting the Constitution. If it wasn't for that, probably wouldn't have happened. So the Federalists were very much in power. And George Washington probably also was a Federalist. And then John Adams was a Federalist. And then it all changed when Thomas Jefferson becomes president in 1800. So that guy becomes, he's the Democratic Republican. So 1789, George Washington's there. 10th Amendment. So remember, Alexander Hamilton was developing industry and a strong national government. Thomas Jefferson was more like, Alexander Hamilton was a Federalist, believes in industry, rich people, and strong national government. You get people like Thomas Jefferson, who's the opposite, anti-Federalist, believes in an agrarian economy. The people should have the vote, not the rich people. So that's the thing. Another thing we didn't talk about was the Whiskey Rebellion, which was a march on Pittsburgh to destroy a town in response to the rebellion against the whiskey tax. George Washington marched on a large army into Philly, and the rebellion disbanded. So the thing is, because the Constitution, it happened after the Constitution. I think it's 1789. I don't know, Whiskey Rebellion, look it up. 1788, 89, but the Constitution's already in place, so there's federal powers to fuck shit up if we need to. So Whiskey Rebellion is like destroyed because the powers are there. Shays Rebellion is really weird because we didn't have that power because the Articles of Confederation was weak af. French Revolution in 1789, England versus France war caused a huge bloody side of French saw the huge bloody side of French Revolution, and essentially because of the violence of the French Revolution, it really put people between the Feds versus the Democratic Republicans because you had to choose a side. To count, and the big thing is that we were talked about you would get the Alien Sedition Acts from this, from the events happening here too, but that was under John Adams. So we talk about how the Kentucky Virginia resolves did that. Once again, you can ask questions if you'd like. It's on the side box. I'm just simply going off. Revolution of 1800. You might think there's people dying and killing. Nope, it's not. It's a very peaceful transition of power. It's actually John Adams is passing off, who's a Federalist, the power to a Democratic Republican. That's the party, Democratic Republican, to him. And no dying. No, it's very rare that a change in party does not result in violence. That's why it's called the Glorious Revolution of 1800. A lot of people thought Thomas Jefferson was like a French spy or something because he was really cool with the French. So yeah, this was a revolutionary because there was no violence. It's just crazy. You just didn't do that. Okay. I'm gonna quickly go into the War of 1812. We're skipping right into chapter 7 because War 1812 is a big thing. I'm very much not doing justice to chapter 7, so you need to really read this. And maybe we'll talk more later, ask questions, but it's because my voice is getting a little. I'm gonna get some water real quick. Okay, War of 1812. Let's go. So, War of 1812, you get the policy embargo in 1807. No business with any European country. And all this is coming from today's notes, by the way. So Thomas Jefferson is trying to be neutral, and during the British-French War, I don't want no business, no war. War means debt. I'm not trying to grow debt. Here's the thing: Thomas Jefferson does not like debt. He does not like a big army. He's not about that whatsoever. So it makes sense that he's trying to like be neutral because that shit you need money for war if you're not trying to be neutral. That should just make sense. All were economic policies and the thing is that the Non-Intercourse Act is what happens after Thomas Jefferson gets out. James Madison becomes president, and he's trying to like ease in the burden because the Embargo Act really effed up American exports and business, so they lost a lot of money. So the Non-Intercourse Act is like, we'll deal with any European country as long as it's not British or France, and as long as they accept us as a sovereign nation. And the French were like, hey, we accept you, and also we're going to take your ships if we catch you. The British would like stop the ship, got the stuff, and they would impress soldiers, and that's why they really were pissed off at the British. The French, after they got through the British, would just pretty much confiscate everything because you're like, you were with the enemy, you touched them, can't do that shit. So the British and French are both giving the Americans a damn good time and fucking them up. But it's the British that really get them angry because they're impressing all their soldiers. That means that they're taking their navy and making them fight for the British. Originally, they're like, we're just looking for people who are running away from the British army, the British Navy. So at first, yeah, there was British people abandoning the British army because they don't want to fight anymore by hiding with the Americans. But later on, they're like, I don't care. Let's do this. And there was the case of the British who refused to return 3 Black Americans. They were obviously not British, not because they got very much, I don't know why they weren't obviously not American. You can ask history, but these were obviously 3 Black Americans. And because they wouldn't give them back, U.S. got pissed, and that's one of the last straws for the 1812 war. There was 3 theaters. They have something like that. I have in my readings, but the thing is, another big thing was the Warhawks. And the Warhawks were from the West and the South, and essentially really upset about British action, especially with the boats, because they attacked the Chesapeake. That was one of their big boats. I'm not sure if that was the one with the 3 Africans. I believe it was. But Chesapeake boat gets attacked. And this was essentially like they're going to have Calhoun and this other guy. I forget their names, but look up Warhawks. I think it's Calhoun from Kentucky they're one's from Kentucky, one's from like Tennessee or South Carolina. I don't know. But there's 2 big names. The Milan Act. Any ship that had contact with the British, the French would confiscate. That's the French thing I was talking about. Attack on the Chesapeake was the big attack that I talked about that causes the War of 1812. It's like the ignite. It doesn't cause it entirely, but it's the spark that makes it happen. War of 1812 is also known as the American Second War of Independence because they're fighting the British. You have the Atlantic Theater with the French Napoleon versus the British. The Great Lakes Northern Theater, the British and the natives versus British and natives, Indians together versus the U.S. You have the Southern Theater, which I think is like the British fighting the South or something. I forgot what the Southern Theater really was about. Okay, we're gonna go real quick. I have like 5 minutes left, and then I'm only gonna do 5 more minutes just because I gotta do something else after this. But if you guys want me to cover more stuff, just let it be known now because that's all I know. William Henry Henderson, Andrew Jackson, and John Wilfred Scott are all veterans that helped them grow in politics as the 1812 war. So William Henry Harrison, Andrew Jackson, and General Wilfred Scott. There's a bunch of stuff. The Americans burned York in Canada, which essentially was the British capital there. And in retaliation, they burned the capital, which I believe was in Philadelphia at the time. I think it was in Philadelphia. Maybe it was DC. I think it was in DC. Yeah, it was in Washington D.C. They burned the hell out of that capital, except for the Supreme Court building, which was saved because of a hailstorm, which is funny. Another battle was the New Orleans battle where they wrote the Star Spangled Banner, where it happened after the Treaty of Ghent was already signed. Essentially, like, oh, the war's already over, but they don't know about it. And Andrew Jackson, because of that, was really big. Like, he was able to become president because of that. The War of 1812 just really made a lot of people like really famous and able to run for office. The era of good feeling results of that. Americans become proud of being American. There's a lot of patriotism. And a lot of that ends in 1819 with the panic because there's a lot of land speculation. People are just like, oh, this is great land. It costs a ton of money. Let's all buy land to be rich. And then all the land didn't cost a lot of money. And all these people who thought they were going to get rich didn't. And that caused a lot of problems. So, yeah, that sucks. Native Americans are pretty big in the War of 1812 and a little bit before that because you get General Tecumseh. He's a Shawnee native, and his brother Tenskwatawa. Tecumseh is the military general. He's the one fighting all the battles. And Tenskwatawa is the prophet. He's essentially the Jesus that people are following. He's not really Jesus, but like he's a spiritual leader. He feels the power of the Great One. You get me? So Tenskwatawa is like at the mind, and Tecumseh is the muscle. So William Henry Harrison made a fraud deal with him with the natives that was taking lots of land from Michigan and Ohio. So because of the William Henry Harrison deal, a lot of them got pissed and saying like these whiteys are like fucking not being cool. The Treaty of Ghent, going back there, said there was no winner or loser. Just go back to the territory, dominion, pre-war status between the American and the French. So that's what the treaty that ended the War of 1812. Manifest Destiny, coined by John L. Sullivan, idea of expanding Indian North Pole, expanding to everywhere, the whole west of the United States. Essentially, you could just take land if you just feel like, because you're American, and that's what Americans do, baby. So any natives, hey man, you want to move over? When you move over again, just fuck it. This is mine now. So stuff like that. Louisiana Purchase is done by the French because Napoleon is like, holy shit. After the Haitian Revolution in 1798, he gets his ass is getting handed to him in Europe, and he needs more money. And Louisiana Territory, which is pretty much the middle of the current day United States, a big chunk of it, he's like, America was like, hey, let me buy this piece of land. And he's like, yo, man, I got a liquidation sell. I know you want this piece of land for 10 mil. How about I give you the entirety Louisiana Territory for 15 mil, 5 mil more, and you get like triple more land. The United States like, hell yeah, baby. Causes a problem because Thomas Jefferson is a Republican Federalist, and he's not allowed to buy land. That's Congress's position. But the deal is so good, everyone's like, fuck it, just buy it, bro, because that shit is lit. So everyone's like, Thomas Jefferson, you shouldn't have done that, but it's kind of lit, so we'll let you slide. So no one's really complaining. Everyone loves land. New land for Americans. Everyone's happy. It's like, yeah, like, I'm sad that you stole $5 out of my purse, but you managed to buy a friggin' car with $5, fully paid. Yeah, you suck for stealing my $5, but we got a literal effing car. So you got that going for you. That's essentially what it is. They got it mad cheap. Best real estate deal ever. Lewis and Clark does all this crazy stuff after they get the new lands and stuff. So he starts exploring all these new lands. And there's this black guy named York. Black tour guide for Lewis and Clark, and Sacagawea, which is the native guide to Lewis and Clark. Last 2 minutes, and then we'll be done. Jebediah Smith was a famous mountain man. Those are the dudes who are like with a hunter, you know. I think it almost looks like the Leonardo DiCaprio movie where like he's hunting bears or some shit. And Manifest Destiny was the idea whites could just take the land. So the first people to go were these mountain men, very strong men going to the wilderness and having native wives. And the Native Americans were cool with that. So they thought, hey, if we let the white guys, you know, marry our women, then maybe we'll be cool. We all know how that turned out. American merchants, we were talked about that. New Orleans made. So the Creek lose the battle in the South. That's kind of the Creek are the losing battles during the War of 1812. This is not going back. I'm jumping around a lot because we're finishing up. The Creeks lose in the South and lose 23 million acres because of the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. So make sure Horseshoe Bend battle. There's also the battle at Tippiopoke. There's some more. We'll talk about more later. But email me, do some stuff. We'll finish off. So another thing is in Latin America, after Napoleon takes off the king off the Spanish throne, all these Spanish territories that were the colonies of them are like essentially have no colonists. And everyone's like, nope, we answer to the Spanish king and he's not there, so F y'all. So everyone's like, oh shit, like Russia could get Spain, all of Latin America. Germany, because it's up for grabs. They're colonies without a colonist. You want to have those colonies? Hell yeah. Guess what? Monroe Doctrine essentially says that, hey, this is our stuff. We will not take them over. We're not going to abuse them. But if you touch them, we're going to have a problem. And guess what? America just beat the strongest military in the world. So everyone's like, it's like playing a game of poker. And you're like pretty sure that guy has 2 aces. And you're rocking with like a 2 and a 3. So if you don't play poker, sorry for the analogy. Essentially, these guys are the biggest badasses on the block. And they just pulling a huge bluff. Like, they might be pulling a huge bluff, but they got the stuff to back it up. So no one messes with them. Essentially, but America does, you know, abuse them and stuff later. That's another chapter. But that's it for today. That's 37 minutes of pure content. We really went really quickly over chapter 6 and 7. Feel free to review the video. I know we went through things pretty fast, but there's just a lot of stuff, and I do have some other stuff to do. But thanks again. I'm probably going to maybe go back to Facebook because I've noticed that we don't get that much viewership on YouTube. We were getting like maybe 5 or 6 on Facebook. YouTube was like 2 people. So we'll talk about it. Let me know what's up. Maybe that the fact that it doesn't give us the preview, that's fine. But we'll link the video. We'll see what's up. We'll see what's good. Have a good night. Good luck. Remember, chapter 6 and 7. We did not get to George Washington. Probably. I didn't read it all, so it's probably best you read it first. Everything's due on Thursday. Thursday is the George Washington speech. Midterm quiz is on Wednesday. Best of luck. Have a good one. Let me know your feedback if you have any.